Hello everyone. This is a brief video walkthrough of some things that you need to do before you begin working on the second draft of the current essay that you're working on. At this point, you should have already turned in a completed rough draft to me that follows all the directions given on the assignment sheet and all of the directions provided in the instruction in the lessons, lecture materials, and videos that are in the course. You should have also uploaded a copy of your rough draft for one of the CLE tutors to review. And the purpose of this, of course, is so that you get 3 rounds of feedback on your rough draft to help drive the revisions. But it doesn't stop there, because you should also be self-assessing the execution of your own rough draft using the checklist provided for this paper, the assignment sheet, and all the lessons, lectures, videos, and examples that have been provided in this unit. And let me go ahead and switch screens and show you that one of the things that you should do before you begin working on the second draft is you should, if you have access to a printer, you should print out your peer reviews, and you should print out the tutor review that you got from the CLE tutor so that you can get out a pen and you can go through and read them carefully, and you can circle the ones that are especially useful. These are the ones that you will take into consideration when you are revising your current draft. You should also do the same for the things that you know that you need to do so that you can have essentially 4 different sources of feedback. The 2 from your peer reviews, the 1 from the tutor, and then whatever else you can come up with in your own self-assessment. And the reason why I'm asking you to do that, let me go over here and open up a file. And I'm going to show you what it is I'm going to be calling for on Saturday. And I'm going to show you how to do this later, so don't worry about this. But you see the purple here and the underline. What you see here in purple, this is what somebody has added to their draft in draft 2 that was not there in draft 1. So what we're going to be doing for draft 2 is we'll be comparing draft 1 to draft 2, and when we do that, there's a feature in Word, there's also a feature in Google Docs, by the way, that does this as well, that will compare draft 1 to draft 2, and it will automatically underline everything that you added in draft 2 that wasn't there in draft 1, and it will draw a line through anything that you take out of draft 1. And so it'll show what you removed, it'll show what you added, and it'll also show what you moved around. So if you make some decisions in terms of deciding, oh, I want to put this paragraph, earlier in the paper, etc., all of the changes that you make are indicated. They're done in color. This is not something that you do by hand. This is something that Word will do for you when you follow a series of steps. This is also something that you can do in Google Docs as well. It has a compare feature there as well. And so this is what you have to turn in to me for the second draft. And it is graded exclusively on you making meaningful and substantial content-based revision, and that's even if, and especially if, you already have a good draft. I know I got some comments from some students in the peer reviews indicating that, hey, I'm in a group with some people that have some really great drafts, and I agree. We've got some students who have really great drafts already, but there is room for improvement in pretty much any draft, even ones that are really good. And so we're talking about content-based revision. We're not talking about spelling, grammar, and punctuation, although clearly you do want to correct things if you notice them along the way. But for draft 2, this is where you need to, yes, make corrections to the works cited page and things like that. But the real focus is on making meaningful and content-based revision, not just a little gesture. So you're going to be adding, quite a bit. Look right here. This is quite a bit, that's added here. And you're going to do this all the way through the paper. And this is what it's graded on. The amount of proof, the amount of evidence that you show me that you made a good faith effort to improve this paper. And why are we doing this? I always do multiple drafts, and I always ask students to do these things because the whole point is that writing is a process, and it takes time to take that diamond in a rough and polish it into a final draft that's really ready for me to grade as a final draft. And these assignments are much lower stake than, say, the final draft. The final draft for an essay is often worth a significant amount of your overall average. And so these activities that we do leading up to it are so very meaningful. And so sometimes what I have students do, though, is they will end up making a gesture. They just make a few changes here or there, and they're like, there you go, Ms. Bell, there's your revised draft. Hope you have fun looking at that. But these are not for me. This is an opportunity for you to pull out all the stops and to try to make as many meaningful content-based revisions that you think are necessary in order to get your paper to the next level. And you have a variety of sources of feedback to draw from. Again, you've got 4 different places, including yourself, if you turned in a completed draft and were able to participate in all those activities. And for those who were not able to participate in those activities because you didn't have a draft in, then you have to work, extra hard in order to catch up, and you might be missing out on some of the opportunities that your classmates had in terms of getting peer review, which, if done right, if done well, is something that rivals what I can do and rivals what, any tutor from any online tutoring service can do, because we're all in the position of having read those sources, and all it really takes to give good feedback is to have a willingness to read something critically, analytically, and to evaluate how well is this being executed and how can I help this person, guide this person to make a better point. All right, so this is what's going to be collected on Saturday, and the whole reason that I'm explaining this now is because I need you to do this for me before you make any changes to your current draft. So that's the wrong one. Let me go over here and open this one. Okay, so pretend this is your first draft. I know this isn't your paper, but pretend that it is, and I need you to go up here before you make any changes, and you're just going to go File, Save As, and you're going to save it wherever you're going to save it. I'll just put this here on the desktop just for illustration purposes. And what I want you to do is I want you to, whatever you called it, if you called it Fear Essay, I just want you to add a 2 to it, and that's it. Is you're going to add a 2 to it, and then notice that the document file name changes. Let me widen the window there. All right, so it changed from just being Sample Fear Paper Adrian to Sample Fear Paper Adrian 2. So that's all you're doing, is you're adding a 2 to your file name. You're not going to touch that original draft anymore. You're going to leave it. Right now you have a carbon copy of that draft at this moment, and then you're just going to come in here and work like you normally would. You can add whatever you're going to add. So if I came in here and I added something, I can do that, and I'll do that all the way through the paper. I'll add, move, just work on this normally and save it like that. Later, and in another video, I will show you how to do the compare feature in Word so that it will compare draft 1 to draft 2 so that you can save that result, and that's what you'll turn into me on Saturday. All you need to know right now is that when you open your file, your rough draft, to begin working on the second draft, you need to come up here to File, do File, Save As, and add a 2 on it, and that's the one that you work on forevermore. For those who are a little bit behind, in order for you to catch up and to be able to turn in a second draft, that means you need to have a complete rough draft done. It needs to meet the minimum requirements. Some students had a complete draft done, but they didn't follow any of the directions on the assignment sheet. There were no sources in them. It was in first person. It was based on personal experience, and so that doesn't count. You need to have a complete draft that follows all the directions that I gave you, and write the paper that I actually assigned you in order to partially get caught up. You need to get feedback on that and self-assess. You can get that feedback from the CLE, and you can also use the checklist, the assignment sheet, the materials in Blackboard to help you have a sense of what all you need to do to drive the revisions. Students who turn in a first draft to the second draft link will not get credit for that. I'm not asking for the first draft there, I'm asking for the second draft, and it is graded exclusively on the amount of revisions that you make to draft 1, and you can't get credit for draft 2 until or unless you have a draft 1 so that you can compare what you do beyond that point to show me the changes that you made. It is still possible for those who are behind to catch up and turn in an actual second draft that shows evidence of meaningful content-based revision to the first draft, but those students should have already completed that draft by now, should have already submitted their papers to the CLE, and if you haven't, you need to do that very, very quickly so that you have an opportunity to catch up. I will say this, that if for whatever reason those students who have fallen behind don't do that, it's important that you turn in a draft of some kind, but it must be complete. It must use all 6 sources, and it must be the paper that I have asked you to write, not something that you just kind of winged and made up based on what you thought maybe I was asking because you didn't read the lessons or watch the videos or read the assignment sheet. But it must do those things, and everybody should turn in something. Hopefully it's a second draft, but if you're behind and you get just a first draft in, you won't get credit for it. But it's super important that you turn it in, because next week we will have the final draft that's due. And these drafts serve as a safety net. So if I have them in, and especially those of you who haven't turned in anything at all, it's important that I have something in my hands prior to the final draft being due, so that if something happens, if your internet is acting up, if you lose track of the time, whatever, that I have a complete copy of a draft for this paper that I could grade in lieu of a final draft in case for whatever reason you didn't turn one in, because as you know, I don't take late work, and these drafts serve as a backup. If I have these drafts in, then I at least have some version of your latest draft that I could grade in a pinch if the need arose. So it's super important that everybody turn that in. All right, so that's it. All you need to remember is when you're ready to do your revisions, do File Save As and add a 2 to it. I will come back with another video later showing you how to do the compare feature for what you will turn in to me this weekend for Draft 2. Y'all have a great day, and I'll talk to you soon.